Hi, everybody. It's Peter Schiff. It's Monday, October 25th, 2010. Well, this weekend, leaders of the 20 industrialized nations that comprise the G20 met in Seoul to discuss the global economy. Of course, the United States was represented by our Treasury Secretary, Timothy Geithner, who actually had the nerve to dispense economic advice to the other participants. I've likened this in the past to an F student trying to give advice to honor students on how to improve their grades. And of course, what were the pearls of wisdom that Timothy Geithner had for the other nations, particularly the creditor nations who are doing it right? Well, his advice was that they reduce their surpluses. In other words, the F student is telling the A students not to study as hard, to stop getting all these high grades on their exams, as if somehow global economies are graded on a curve, that if we can just weaken our competitors, that somehow it's going to benefit Americans, that our standard of living will improve. Well, the irony of it is it's actually going to be hurt if the rest of the world actually does adhere to our advice. And part of what's so ridiculous about the advice, we're trying to get the surplus nations to reduce their surpluses. Well, in large part, the surpluses result from trade surpluses. In other words, the world is selling us a lot of products that we're buying. Well, it takes two to tango. We don't have to tell them to stop selling. We just have to stop buying. It's like if you're frequenting a bar and you keep getting drunk, and then you're arguing with the bartender, telling him to stop serving you all the liquor. Well, stop ordering the drinks. There's nothing preventing us from doing that. What we really need to do, instead of beating up on our trading partners because they're more productive than we are, we need to examine what we're doing on our side that's making us unproductive. What we need to do is repeal the rules and regulations that inhibit our productivity. We need to lower taxes, which means we need to shrink government. And we actually need a sound monetary policy. We need higher interest rates. What we're doing with 0% interest rates and quantitative easing is we are encouraging Americans to go out and buy more stuff. And of course, what are they going to buy? Well, they're going to buy the things that are made in China, because we're not making stuff here. I mean, sure, we make some things, but Americans aren't going to go and buy a bomber from Boeing. What they need are consumer goods. They need clothing. They need consumer electronics. All these things are made abroad. Think about all the cell phones that everybody has, and every year or two, everybody upgrades their cell phone. Not a single cell phone is made in the United States. Not one. We got all these unemployed workers, yet everything we're buying is being imported. And even if we were to succeed in encouraging the Chinese to reduce their surpluses, how are they going to do that? Well, they have to stop selling us stuff. They've got to raise prices on the things they sell us and buy more of their stuff themselves. It's not as if they're going to buy American products, because after all, Americans aren't even buying American products. How do we expect the Chinese to do that? If the Chinese consume more, they're going to consume exactly what Americans are consuming. That's goods made in China. And so when that happens, prices go up for us. And so at Walmart, it's not everyday low prices, it's everyday high prices. Do you think Barack Obama is going to, give himself a pat on the back, and he's going to tell Americans that, we're out there in South Korea trying to make sure that China raises everybody's prices. We want to put an end to these low prices at Walmart. We want to make sure that the prices for the things that you want to buy are higher. Think people are going to think that they've done a good job, that they've helped improve the economy, particularly all the unemployed, saying, hey, great, I got great news for you. Not only you're unemployed, but we've made sure that all your prices go up. And in fact, what's going to help ensure this is the discussion on currencies. Normally when you had the G7 or the G8, now the G20, when they would convene at a time when the dollar was at record lows, which it's at, certainly against the yen, it's at a record low today. It's hit record lows in the last several weeks against the Swiss franc, against the Australian dollar, a number of currencies. Normally the discussion is how to stabilize the currency markets, meaning the dollar. Unnecessary volatility. You get some kind of joint statement, a communique on intervention, that we are monitoring currencies for undue volatility, that we stand ready to intervene. That's not what we got this time. We got the opposite. The statement coming out of the group of 20 is that we're not going to intervene, that we're not going to have competitive devaluations, that we're going to let the economic fundamentals, the markets, determine currency rates. Well, if we're going to let the markets, the fundamentals, determine the dollar's value, the dollar's going to drop like a stone. And this is not going to be a good thing. I mean, maybe the U.S. thinks it's a good thing, but it is unique in that this is the first time this has happened. So I think the dollar is about to go into uncharted territory. We're about to lose a lot more value, and there aren't a lot of foreign central banks, it appears, that are going to try to stand in its way. And of course, what a lot of these countries are going to be doing now that are not intervening is putting pressure on China, again, to allow the RMB to appreciate. And as this happens, of course, you're going to see the dollar really getting clobbered and prices going up. And that is what's going to stop Americans from buying foreign products. It's going to be because we can't afford them anymore, because the weak dollar is going to so impoverish us that we get priced out of the market. That is the reality. Look at what's happening with some commodities. Say, look at the price of cotton. Cotton is at an all-time record high today. In fact, the price of cotton has doubled since, I think, April of 2009. And it's actually 50% higher than it was in early 2008, just before the CRB index was down by 50%. So huge increase. And it's not just cotton. Look at the price of copper now. It's almost at $4 a pound. But commodity prices in general are rising, and they are going to rise much, much faster as a result of a weak dollar, which is certainly going to arise based on the statements coming out of this group of 20. Also, I wanted to comment very briefly. I thought it was very entertaining. I saw another Peter Schiff video where somebody was trying to take me to task for a comment I made in an interview I did in New York, where I was kind of debating a guy who had confessed to me that he was either a socialist or a Marxist. I forget the words. But we were having a bit of a debate. And his solution to our economic problems was for the government to spend a lot more money, particularly on infrastructure, and to finance it by raising taxes on the rich. And I pointed out that, hey, I'm already paying almost 50% of my income in taxes now. How much higher do you want to raise it? I mean, how much more do you think I should pay? And apparently the guy that made this video couldn't believe that I can possibly pay close to 50%. And I thought that was interesting, and how people don't really understand just how high the taxes are in this country. So I thought I'd kind of run it down. First of all, the federal income tax bracket I pay now is 35%, right? That's the marginal rate, but I mean, I have a relatively high income, so the marginal rate is my rate. I pay the marginal rate on better than 90% of what I earn. So that's my tax rate. The state of Connecticut is 6.5%. So you add that to the 35, but also I pay 2.9% of my total income in Medicare taxes. I mean, I pay half of it, and then my corporation pays the other half, but of course I own the corporation, so I pay the other half. If I didn't have to pay it, I'd pay it to myself in salary. So you add the 2.9 plus the 6.5 plus the 35, that puts me at 44.4%. That's pretty close to 50%. And that doesn't even count the property taxes I pay. It doesn't count the Social Security taxes I pay. It doesn't count all the sales taxes I pay and all the hidden taxes whenever I buy stuff. Of course, it doesn't count any of the taxes I pay through my corporation. And of course, next year, when the Bush tax cuts expire, if they expire, my 44.4% bracket becomes a 49% bracket. I mean, that is half my income. Of course, when you throw in the other taxes, it's more than 50%. But it's actually worse than that. If you think about all the money that I have to spend complying with government rules and regulations before I can even earn my money. Right now, I pay all those expenses, those legal bills, all the unnecessary compliance workers. I pay all that out of my corporation, but of course, all that reduces the profits that would otherwise be there to pay me a salary. Now, some of it might have been used to lower commissions to my clients. Some of it might have been in higher wages to other employees, but certainly a large percentage of those compliance costs come directly out of my pocket. I would guess that at a minimum, the cost of complying with government rules and regulations at least consumes another 10% of my income, maybe more, which means I'm probably closer to the 60% bracket when you count the regulate, maybe higher. And of course, my income is a lot lower than it otherwise would be if my company wasn't being made less efficient. All these rules and regulations eliminate the ability of my business to grow. It makes me less productive and less profitable. So if I didn't have to spend all this money complying with all these rules and regulations, my income would be a lot higher. Of course, the government might get more taxes as a result, but I'd have a lot more money. So if you figure out not only my costs, personal costs of income taxes, payroll tax, state income taxes, I'm already practically at 50%. When you throw in all the other things, I'm well north of it. Do people really think I'm going to work just as hard if they raise my taxes even higher? I don't think so. Anyway, that's it for today. Take care, everybody.